Inside the Parisi Palace, high above 2919 East Broadway, this is the Jake Feinberg Show. Coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. Download our free app. Stream all of our live local shows using your smartphone or personal computer, including Solomon on Blast and the Jim Parisi Show. We can't thank you enough for making us part of your day today. And as 2016 continues, I've dedicated this year to the Year of the Woman, and I have a very talented lady on the phone, a gifted singer, somebody who got their career kick-started maybe 50, 60 years ago, and she's still cooking today. Rita Graham, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. How you doing?
Hi.
How you doing, Rita?
I'm good. How are you?
It's nice to connect with you.
Oh, my pleasure.
Rita, I just wanted you to talk a little bit about your experience growing up, if you ever had an experience going to a sanctified church.
No, no, not at all. I'm probably one of the few singers from my era who did not come from the church. Although my dad's barbershop was down the street from Rita Franklin's dad's church, from Reverend Franklin's church.
In Detroit or down south in Memphis?
In Detroit. I grew up in Detroit.
Unbelievable. So you never went to C.L. Franklin's church, though?
No. My mother was a jazz lover and the American Songbook, and she played everything, classical pieces on the piano and stuff like that. So my whole indoctrination was not from that era or from there at all. I really wish I had, though. I look back on it now, and I wish that I had more of that.
Why do you say that?
I just feel like those soul singers that can sing all those licks and stuff, it's really cool to be able to have that in your vocabulary, you know?
No, if I interviewed a guy, professor at Cornell a couple years ago who wrote a book on C.L. Franklin. I mean, a lot of his speeches from the pulpit would be pumped out on radio in Detroit too. Did you ever listen to any of his stuff or live?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, he was the first, I guess, not televangelist, but the first person to have sermons sold on recordings. To sell records of his sermons.
That's right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Can you paint the picture for my audience all over the world about the vibe? The music vibe in Detroit, if the culture lived on the streets, and ultimately the kinds of clubs that you were getting your feet wet in?
Yeah, it was hot. There were clubs everywhere. And even though I was in college, I was slipping away on the weekends, and I would just show up in clubs, and they would let me sing. And as soon as somebody paid me, I was hooked. But there were so many clubs, and my friend who was the lifeguard at the swimming pool, we used to go to swim when I was 12. His mother, LaJune Rogers, had an agency, and she and her husband had been a dance team, I guess, a little few years after vaudeville. And she had an agency in Detroit, and there were so many clubs. There was so much work. It was before television and all of these all this internet stuff that they've got going on now. And live entertainment was what it was. People dressed up, went out. Gigs were 6-7 nights a week. Clubs were just gorgeous. Were absolutely gorgeous, just like in the movies. And there was work for everybody. All the musicians and all the singers were working. And people would call me and say, "Oh, I've got a gig over here, but I'll be leaving next week. Why don't you come on over and let them hear you sing?" And I just go over and sing and get paid. I thought it was going to last forever.
How did you? Can you talk about one of these early gigs? I mean, I'm pretty convinced that cats from your generation, develop their own individual sound, be it instrument or voice, because they were just relentlessly on the bandstand night after night. And I know, when I talked to George Clinton, he talked about there was a club 20 grand. I'm just curious about if you could talk about a specific time that you really had a chance to woodshed on the bandstand and how you got comfortable with your own voice.
Well, that's what it was, and what you just said is exactly what I try to tell young singers starting out: getting comfortable with your own voice. Because just going everywhere, I remember standing on stage at the 20 grand, and my right leg was shaking. I couldn't stop my right leg from shaking because I was scared. But after a while, I remember a dancer said to me, "You look so nervous when you're on stage." She said, "How do you feel when you see somebody nervous on stage?" And I said, "Oh, I feel so sorry for them. And then I feel embarrassed for them." She said, "Well, do you want people to feel embarrassed for you?" And I thought, So that was a real wake-up call. So I guess after a while, because, and this is what I feel sorry for these kids now. They have a lot of models on TV, but they don't really have anywhere to actually get out and work and get their feet wet and deal with an audience, a live audience, and maybe they will never have to.
Can you go back to this point? Because more to the point is that we live in a time now where it's one and done. If you don't perform right off the bat, you're yesterday's news, which I don't think is a good thing because you can't cultivate any real talent doing that. But how did you? When that woman said to you, how would you? I feel sorry for people that look so nervous. Can you talk about some of the nuanced things you did to just feel more comfortable with your own voice?
I just kept doing it, and I went to Australia with a boogie band with a wonderful B3 player from St. Louis. And when we got to the year was 1967.
What was the B3 guy's name?
Chuck Rowan.
Wow. So you were playing boogie woogie stuff, or this is unbelievable. It was like an organ.
Top 40. We were doing top 40. We were doing, we were doing top 40, and we, all the top things that were out there, and the Motown songs and all of that. He was a wonderful singer. And that's where I met Ray Charles after they took me away. Well, I did a solo performance on the Sydney Tonight Show. And so I guess the agency thought, we can go ahead and book this band and get paid for them over there, and we can book Rita as a single artist in another spot. So they sent me to the Hotel Australia in Adelaide, and was a room at the top with a 10-piece band. And that was the first time I ever had my own musical charts. The guy there wrote it for me. He was really, really sweet. And I met Ray Charles the night before I was due to come back to the States. And I thought that, I met Ray Charles. This is great. It's wonderful. I never dreamed that he would call me and say, "Come on down here, let's make this album." So he did the album of lush standards, beautiful old songs. You'd Be So Nice to Come Home To, and Quiet Nights and Quiet Stars, and Meditation, and No Greater Love, just beautiful songs on that album. And then I went out with him as a Raylette. After a while, I think the culture shock of going somewhere with a huge entourage like that I guess I was too inexperienced to really be able to appreciate that. And then I was thinking, well, the album, I should be at because by that time I knew exactly what I was doing on stage. I should be in Montreux or somewhere while he's in Newport, jazz festivals. That's what I've always loved doing, is jazz festivals. And so I left that company and went on to, right after that, I joined the Harry James aggregation. I used to tell people that I was a Harry James vocalist, and people didn't believe it. But now the performances, there are a couple of them now on YouTube, and on my website too, on ritagraham.com.
Well, let's you just you segued perfectly into the next. We got a name on this program called Name That Tune. We're going to take a listen to this music, and we'll come back and break it down.
Okay.
Trumpet Blues. At this time, we would like to introduce and feature a very wonderful little lady that's just recently joined our band. We think she's a great talent, and I'm sure that you will enjoy. Miss Rita Graham.
When we played our charade, we were like children posing, playing at games, acting out names, guessing the parts we played. Oh, what a hit we made. We came on next to closing, best on the bill, lovers until love left the masquerade. Fate seemed to pull the strings, I turned and you were gone. While from the darkened wings, the music box played on. Sad little serenade, song of my heart's composing. I hear it still, I always will. Best on the bill, charade. It seemed to pull the strings, I turned and you were gone. While from the darkened wings, the music box played on. Sad little serenade, song of my heart's composing. I hear it still, I always will. Best on the bill, charade, charade.
Music on the Jake Feinberg Show, brought to you by the Circle Tree Ranch, the Stereo Hospital, the Jewish Community Center of Southern Arizona, Craig Pretzinger Agency Allstate Insurance, and the Jewish Federation of Southern Arizona, and we thank them for their support. All right, Miss Graham, what do you got for us? What is that?
Oh, wow. There's a great story about that tune. Harry heard my Ray Charles album on a Tuesday, and they called me and asked me could I be in Las Vegas in 2 days for rehearsal. And at that time, I was married to an arranger. He just passed last year, Charles Blaker. We had a very brief marriage, but he was always my friend. And he said, I'm going to write some charts. And he sat down up all night long, and I had no idea how that chart went. That was his chart of charade. And when I got to Las Vegas, I set my music on the podium, and Harry, who's a very intimidating figure, very tall, and he has great big eyes, goodness, piercing eyes. And he stepped out on stage, and he looked at my music, and he said, "What's this?" "That's my music, Mr. James, sir, you know." And he thumbed through it a little bit, and all of a sudden he just counted it off. 1, 2, 3. When that was the chart, it just turned out beautifully.
Can you, this is very inspirational. 1971 in London, that was Rita Graham singing with the Harry James Orchestra. But can you talk about the magic that ensues when it's spontaneous improvisation going on? I mean, you had not spent, my generation, I'm 38, and younger generations spend hours and hours, perseverating over songs, listening to things over and over, rehearsing things over and over again, to the point when you get on the bandstand, it's almost sterile. But yet you're talking about getting an arrangement from your ex-husband, former husband, showing up at the gig and just hitting it. Can you talk about that magic that ensues when you pull something off and it sounds so good and so fresh?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the magic, because of the machines now, so much of the magic like that is lost. There was a time when almost everything was that way. You know, if you had a chance to talk, to do more than talk it down, it was a blessing, because nobody could possibly think of moving their car to go to an unpaid rehearsal. And paid rehearsals were never heard of. So a lot of the things that I did and had to do didn't have much to do with a lot of rehearsal. A lot of times, if I had a gig with a band, what we would do is schedule a woodshed maybe from noon to midnight that night to run down the whole band's repertoire. You know, bam, 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 and run them down, and that was the rehearsal for the gig. A lot of times people we were working with, especially in those days, had other gigs. You didn't find a lot of people who had day jobs like people have now. Most of the musicians I worked with when I started out, that was all we did was music. We didn't do anything else.
And you were getting paid for it, too.
We were getting paid for it.
It was a gig. I mean, can you, going back to this organ trio, can you talk to younger cats about how to how you would communicate on the bandstand if the drummer was rushing your tempo?
Oh, I just turn around and say, "Hey, Kenny, give me some time." Yeah, it's good. Come on, and then I would, hit my thigh or something, to try to, come on, let's slow it down. Everybody had a whole nother attitude about music. And nowadays, even though I work a lot, I work all the time. Really, I just got back from Bangkok.
Wow. From
Thailand in February and March, and then the movie that I did, We Are Kings. We had a 3 performances in Chicago, and also they showed our movie for the Chicago International Movie and Music Festival.
Wow.
And it was really great. So the movie is called We Are Kings, and I'm the female lead. I'm Lily King, opposite blues legend Sammy Blue. He plays I.B. King. It's a family movie. Very sweet. The CD is available on Amazon, and the soundtrack is available on CD Baby. And it also stars a brilliant young girl singer, Bianca Ryan. They did not give her a ballot. I think it was a shame. She won the first season of America's Got Talent when she was 11. And she sang that big ballad from Dreamgirls. And I don't know how this guy made a movie without giving Bianca Ryan a song that, would throw a little red meat to her 17 million fans that she has hits on YouTube.
You think that? You think it's like it's not? I'm fascinated by this whole film in itself, but do you feel like it's not, commercially pop music, and therefore that's why he didn't put it in there? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know, but I think there were some big, gorgeous blues ballads that would have 4 or 5 lines, because this girl is really, really talented. And then the other cast member, John Boogie Long, is just an amazing, phenomenal blues guitarist, singer from Louisiana. Just he's a knockout. And I think the movie is so charming. The producer's trying to find a spin-off opportunity right now, and I don't know what he's up to. He lives in Paris.
No, I just dig it. It's really interesting because I just got commissioned to produce the film documentary on Stan Getz, and I'm looking here that this film was crowdsourced beginning with a Kickstarter campaign. I just find that I guess can you talk about the way you view the blues as a music? I mean, I look at it now and I look at it and I say it's hard for cats to I mean, in the past you could be living the blues and you could be a performer and really get it out of your system, and now it's just it's hard because if you're playing the blues and you live in suburbia, it's hard to really sing about that in a really authentic way. And we have a lot of working poor in this country now who are really living the blues, but they can't express it because there's no paid music gigs anymore. So what was your view and concept of the blues growing up in Detroit and even in the Midwest? And what was inspiring to you about blues music?
Well, I've always, because my dad was had a barber shop with a great big, it seemed to me then, jukebox, and that jukebox had everything on it that you could possibly imagine, every genre of music. So I was so familiar with not only the American Songbook, Cole Porter and Gershwin, and all of the amazing artists, that came along from the big band era. But the blues was a part of it. The blues that's where most of the music, the rhythm and blues, R&B they call it, all the English rockers were all influenced heavily by the blues players. And there's something that there's a line in We Are Kings where John Long is talking to Sammy Blue, and he says, what is the blues? And there was, it's a wonderful way that Sammy answers, the blues is the truth. It's the truth. And then somebody else used to say, well, if you have to ask, you'll never know.
Right.
But it's, and I think of, when I started out with Ray Charles and found out his sensibilities were as inclusive as my own, and I think that was the reason why the attraction that we had for each other musically was just so natural, because I loved everything that he loved. I loved that down and dirty, get it, rusty microphone, bucket of blood kind of blues. And at the same time, I could still hear Sigmund Romberg. I could still hear all these marvelous writers that from Broadway and from the 30s and 40s and 50s that really, 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 really wrote beautiful lyrics. And it actually, in my mind, I think of all forms of music as telling the story, and then the story is built upon the chords and the feel, and how the chords and the feel of the story, or how the chords and the feel accompanies the story, or how it fits into itself. It's hard to describe. I see things in color, so I don't hear words sometimes in my head.
No,
but,
I dig. I really dig. I mean, can you? So is it? Just paint the picture here for the audience. You're in Australia, and Ray saw you perform, or did you come back to the States, and who connected you guys originally?
Oh, it was amazing. An Australian girl who died young, she insisted, because I was leaving for L.A. the next day. I think I mentioned that. And he was in town, and my friend, who is had been the drummer with the Ray Charles band for 4 years, I thought was in town with him. But I said, I can see, his name is Billy Moore, and I said, I can see Billy anytime, because it was very cold, snowing, blizzard. It was awful. And she says, we go see Ray Charles. No, I can see Billy. I don't need to go, But we went, and the theater was closed by the time we got there. And so we went around the back, and all the groupies were standing out there in that freezing cold in their little mini skirts. It was an amazing experience. And I was just standing there. I'm like, what am I doing here? This is ridiculous. And my friend, Billy Preston, that I knew from L.A., and Curtis Amy, who played all the horns.
I know him. He was a bad studio cat.
He was a bad man. I loved Curtis. Curtis was my friend. I had worked with Curtis's band in L.A. a few times.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he was married to one of the Raylettes, to Mary Clayton, baby sister, we called her.
Wow.
And they were walking past the door there, the stage door. And Curtis said, Rita, and they said, come on in, and hugs all around, and come on in and meet Ray. So after the show was fabulous. He was amazing. He was beyond words. And Billy opened the show with a Double O Soul and another piece that he said Ray only let him do those two songs in all the years he was with Ray Charles. But we got in the dressing room after the show. There was a piano in there, and it was beyond words. He said, well, they tell me you can sing. Can you sing? And I said, well, I sure hope so. I don't know if I can sing or not. And then he sat down at the piano and he played a chord to an old movie song. He played the chord and he sang the first line, and I sang the next one. And it was magical.
Wow.
So I thought, well, that was really nice. Like I said, when he called me 3 months later, because they were on tour, and he called me, my mother answered the phone. And when I got back home, she said, you better sit down. Ray Charles said he wants to record you. And years later now, that was 60.
I want to just be clear. You were in Detroit in a blizzard when you first connected with him? Where was
No,
that?
it was Sydney. I'm sorry.
So it was this was the last night you were in Sydney. There was a snowstorm, and you went to there were groupies in the back, and Ray was performing. That was the first time you sang with him in the back of the okay. And then 3 months later in the States, Ray called you and said, I want you to come to L.A. to do or you were living in L.A. at that time.
I was in L.A. Not I'm only about 10 minutes from his studio, from RPM Studios. And
wow.
it was just magical, and he was on the road, so he only did a couple of tunes at a time. One session was 4 tunes. It sounds a lot like George on My Mind, because the same the guy that produced George on My Mind was the arranger, who was a wonderful person. He did the arranging with Ray for Rita Graham Vibrations. And I think at that time, up until just a few years ago, I thought the RC did that for everybody. And I didn't realize until I saw the Tangerine, it was the name of Ray's label, Tangerine Records discography, that I am the only female with a major recording project on that label that he produced personally himself.
Well, that's how you actually came on my radar, because I saw this record, ABC Tangerine, Rita Graham Vibrations, and I was like, who is this cat? And that to me is like it's one of these great collaborations. I mean, so you're saying the session was broken up into a few different sessions?
Yeah, I think there are 8 cuts on the album, and he did 4. Then he did 2, and 4 tunes, and then he did 2 tunes, and then 2 more on because of his schedule, because he was out of town all the time, and they were live. They were live sessions. There was the only overdub is on the end of a P.S. I Love You. He didn't like the way I said I love you the first time, so I had to do it 4 or 5 times before it sounded right to him. But it was a lovely project, and I wanted so much for them to put something, publicity, and put some, juice behind it, but it never happened. Now, one of the ones that I think the very last tune that I wanted to do was called My Cup Runneth Over with Love.
Mm.
And it's a hit in the UK. And somebody has, I guess what they call it, pirate. They did a pirate.
What did they say? They sampled part? Did they sample part of it?
They actually made a 45 with a TRC label, put a little number on it and everything, and they're selling it as an original 45, and their TRC did not release a single of My Cup Runneth Over with Love.
Oh my! Wait a minute. Okay, so first of all, was the arranger Ralph Burns?
No, it was.
Anyway, you can keep thinking about that.
I see his face. Yeah, I see his face right now, and
Maybe Robinson or something. I don't know. Anyway,
no, big blonde guy.
Here's the thing. So you're not. The point is that someone pirated that, and there's no royalties coming in for that, but it's become a smash success in England. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and there are no royalties coming in for my really big hit record, Rita and the Tierras, Gone with the Wind Is My Love. They sent me a few $100s last year, and a couple of $100 this year. But that record, Rita and the Tierras, Gone with the Wind Is My Love, has been on at least 24 compilations, 5 different record labels.
How, can you chalk that up to when was that cut? That tune?
It was cut in '67, and see, here's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I got in touch with PPL UK, that's like BMI ASCAP here. They explained that if I did not reside in the UK and the record wasn't cut in the UK, then they couldn't give me any royalties on it. And I think that's unfair because I am the artist, and it's a sweet little record. I was really, grateful to have had it. And when they found out, the only way that I knew about the record and realized that the record was a hit, the writer-producer, Lou Barretto, got in touch with me on Facebook, and he says, "Are you the Rita Graham that cut my record?"
Unbelievable.
And I said, "Yeah," and that was 2011. He said, "Well, you've had a hit record since 1969, 1970. And they want to get in touch with you." When they had me to come over in 2011 to do a performance. It was like an anniversary for their casino where they would come and dance the Wigan Casino. And I asked them, I said, "Well, how much time do you want me to do a show? How much time do I have?" And they said, "Oh, we just want you to sing that one song." And when I got there, I was walking through I guess they had posters up. I was walking through the airport, and this couple came up and they said, "Oh, you're Rita Graham, you're Rita Graham." And they started singing the song. They started singing.
I so much is going through my head right now. Can you talk as best you can about, the fact that it's funny you brought that thing up earlier about like the British cats, the progressive British rock guys that were so influenced by the blues. Dave Mason told me that essentially they just repackaged what was going on here in the States and sold it back to us. But can you talk about why black music is better received in Europe than it is in the country that it originated in?
I think people romanticize music. I think it's the same syndrome that as a local person in any city I've lived in, that, we know all about you. We know all about that. You're not exotic enough. You're not. We can't romanticize. You're not from somewhere else. I think people kind of like that, Viva la Différence thing,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a large part of it. And they've also got feelings about they've already developed feelings about you, and they're accustomed to looking at you, and they just know you, and they're attracted and fascinated by the unknown.
That's an interesting point of view. I mean, can you talk, stepping back, how you've dealt, do you feel that, can you talk about being a female in the music industry? Because I know that you're not the first woman I've talked to this year that, had some kind of situation where, some song's been just a huge hit for 40 years and, there's been no royalty payments. And on top of that, I've heard other stories about women that were putting together tunes, but then it got leaked out to somebody else, and they covered the tune first. And I mean, can you talk about the challenges of being a woman in the music business?
It was just a dog eat dog kind of business anyway. When I was recording for Mike Post, and the studio we were in, and like they were saying, click the door closed. We don't want these ideas out on the streets, because a lick like a da 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 da, or ba ba da dang da 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 dang, those licks that make a record happen. Dump 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 dump. Well, it sounds simple to people on the outside of the music business, but those are the licks that sell records.
Right.
And that people hear that stuff and it sticks in their head, and they want to go out and buy it. So those ideas people are always trying to get a hold of your ideas, and you've got to come from a PowerPoint. Especially when I came along, all of the singers that got to the top came from people that already had a great deal of power in the industry. And if without that person in power who really loved me or that project, I wasn't going to get anywhere. And that's essentially the way it happened. I didn't have that powerful launching situation. And when Ray, he did what he could. And I remember when I met James Brown, the only thing that James Brown ever said to me was, he says, I understand that Mr. Charles just produced an album for you, Miss Graham. And I said, oh, yes, sir, Mr. Brown. And he did, and I'm so happy about it. And he said, well, I don't know how you expect to get your records played. He can't get his records played.
No, I don't mean that. I mean, for someone who wasn't even on the planet at that time, it's confounding. But that perseverance. Can you talk? You just mentioned Mike Post and Curtis Amy before. How can you talk about some of your studio work that you did after Vibrations? Because I've done a huge amount of work with talking to a lot of the studio cats. But I mean, can you talk about some of the studio work that you did after that? Well,
I was just whatever an opportunity came along to do a demo or to do another recording project, I just jumped in and did it. As a matter of fact, I put together a compilation of a bunch of things that I cut for J.J. Jackson. It's all right. All right, girl. He was a wonderful writer. I cut a couple of things for him. And Mike produced a marvelous record called Black Daylight that was released about the same time that the label Bell Records, who was the forerunner of Arista, they were all excited about Tony Orlando and Dawn and the Partridge Family and the Fifth Dimension. And so this record that we had done several sides, but the one that I really thought should not have missed was the recording called Black Daylight that J.J. Jackson wrote, and very exciting dance tune. 36 pieces, it was wonderful with the Waters doing background. Other than my stint as a Raylette, I never really did any background studio work. I was always writing and recording as a single artist. And several years ago, I started on a suspense novel, murder mystery, called Karma Rising. It's available on Amazon and also on Kindle and Nook, because I'm looking for a film deal. It's suspense that takes by way of past life regression. It takes the characters back through the 19th century. So it's hot. The subject is hot, and I've got a lot of hope for that. So I never really just kind of hung in a stagnant point. I was always moving toward other things, other goals. And fortunately, after I left Harry, I spent a lot of time in the Far East and Japan, in the top nightclubs, some of the hotels, the Intercontinental Hotel in Manila, I was always like a cafe society kind of artist. I've always preferred lovely gowns and show lights and things like that. And here in Atlanta, there was a club called Sambuca Jazz Cafe, but it wasn't a cafe. It was a 400-seater with white tablecloths and all, and they had built the room around the bandstand.
Wow.
And they had music 7 nights a week, and I had the Sunday night band there for 10 years, and I recorded live there, too. A combination of jazz, a couple of blues, a couple of Latins, and a couple of original songs.
Who was in Curtis Amy's band when you were playing with him?
Oh, he was the band manager. Oh, well, when I started with Curtis, he had Jack Wilson was the pianist.
Yeah.
He ended up with Dinah Washington and Esther Phillips. Loved Jack. Brilliant keyboard player.
Amazing player, yeah.
Yeah, and he had Roy Ayers for a minute.
I know. I was going to say Roy, because I have these Jack Wilson albums with Roy Ayers on Vibes. That's unbelievable. And you were singing jazz standards with them?
Oh yeah,
oh,
yeah.
That is so classic.
Yeah, and one of the things that I'd love to do with Jack was Wild as the Wind. Oh, we used to tear it up.
I think. I just want, before we leave, I just wanted you to. I'm a very big fan of Barack Obama, and I wanted you to talk about how proud, if you're proud of him and the work that he's done, and why you're proud of him, if you are.
I can't begin to tell you. I played the role of Coretta King in a marvelous musical called Selma that we did, and after I fit it into my life, I did Selma 6 nights a week for 3 years of my life. And so I went to the movement for all that time.
Wow.
I thought, I'm a very spiritual person, and I always believed that something would happen that would really make a big change in the world. And I don't think we'll see the changes that he made until maybe, down the line somewhere. But for me and my dad, who was a history major at a small college in West Virginia, I think I cried tears for the movement and for all of us who believed that one day things would change. And along came this guy who is kind, who's smart, who brought, I think, a whole new feeling to American politics, because he wasn't going to allow them to shake him up. As a matter of fact, I wrote some lyrics to a song. Michael Stokes is a friend of mine who produced Janet Jackson and was A&R at A&M Records, and he brought Janet Jackson to A&M. He called me a few weeks ago, and he said he wanted to write a song about Barack Obama. And so I sent him these lyrics. He hasn't gotten back to me yet. I don't know if he likes them, but if you'd like to hear them, I'll read them to you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The gift to us in 2008 was a tan, soft-spoken man. We were amazed how he won the race, and he told us, yes, we can. He faced down hate like none before him. Such dignity we'd not seen. His easy smile made us adore him. Still, we could feel his pain. Yes, we can, he told us. Yes, we can each day. We are forever grateful for the gift of hope he gave. Around the world, they praise his worth. Some Americans don't understand. His courage, grace, and family first shows us that we can. Oh, yes, we can, he told us. Yes, we can, you see. Oh, yes, we can, he showed us the gift that we can be.
Well, I'll tell you, if he doesn't like those lyrics, I'll take them in a heartbeat. To me, can you just definitively, you lived through it, did he face more hatred and vitriol than Dr. King?
Well, it's different.
Yeah, I know.
I
know it's different,
yeah.
but I mean,
I think his is colored with jealousy.
Right.
I think there's just great big.
Right, because he's not a Black Panther. He's not some guy who's spouting ideological hatred towards white. It's just like this immediate knee-jerk reaction, and he seems like the most rational, decent cat. And I don't I really just, so it must be envy, But I know it was different, but I'm just trying to gauge I know Dr. King was a spiritual leader and a movement leader, but I almost feel also as we're getting closer to the end of his second term that the guilt from white America is getting even worse, and you're seeing this it's getting the loudness of the shrill cries is even louder now. It's going to get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and I think it's really sad because the dumbing down of America has, I think, most of all, obscured real history. And as they have these homeschooling, so many people and the generation below you, younger than you are homeschooled. And those courses include whatever they want to put in there. And they don't tell people that it was the years of slavery, decades of slavery that brought prosperity to this country. When you got all these people working, you don't have to pay them anything other than some cornmeal mush and,
You're darn right about that, Rita. No, I mean, there's, yeah, and a lot of people, this is a whole other topic. Rita Graham, I had a ball with you today, and we'll do this again real soon. And I really appreciate you, all the enlightening work and kind of industriousness and entrepreneurial spirit you brought to the table for the last 50, 60 years. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you, and thank you. You are wonderful to talk to, and
yeah, there's no dumbing down on the Jake Feinberg Show. I'll tell you that much. All right, there's no.
I'm glad to hear that. Well, read my book and let me know what you think, okay? And send it out to one of those red hot producers in Hollywood.
I'm on my listen. I'll send you a copy of this. I'll get this up later tonight. I really appreciate it. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Cheers. We'll be right back on the Jake Feinberg Show.